You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now let's open up the floor for discussions on the program this morning, starting off with insecurity in the land and the federal government declaring a red alert on the security situation in Nigeria. Well, joining us at this point is Mr. Ben Agunloye, who is a public affairs analyst and a regular on the program to share his insights with us on this national matter. A very good morning to you, Mr. Ben.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming up.
My player.
Well, a lot of people have heard state of emergency, declaring a state of emergency on insecurity, declaring a state of emergency on an epidemic like the COVID-19. But when you say that the nation's security is on red alert, what exactly does it mean?
Well, when you say it's on red alert, it means they are at the peak of possible responses. It's very ready. They are in a position to move. They are in a position to act. But if you ask me, I think that we should leave the issue of political correctness and public statement to the realm of action. Take your actions and let's see result of the action and less of the talking. Because more talk also make the enemy to get more prepared and to possibly do a hide and seek for the government, knowing fully well that we have got a lot of ungoverned spaces. So I would have think of more action in the area of when are we engaging more men. And I would continue to insist. Nobody forced the president, in my opinion, to announce that he needed to have the forest guard system. And 6 months down the line, no action has been taken. Because if we have these guys protecting the forest, the point of hibernation and the possibility of hide and seek and the possibility of ambushes will become very, very reduced. So it's not about how much money you're pushing. It's not about the number of statements. It's not about the number of aggression. It is that you need boots on ground that are permanently there, that has that territory and the coverage area, and then can always give you what is happening within that environment. So that's one. The other thing is the issue of communication. We are not taking it serious. I don't see the networks expanding. In a lot of places where there even used to be network, now the network is limited. And in the places where network has never been, network are still not there. So when people in such places see something, how do they say something and to who? So we need to also improve on the available communication infrastructure. If telephone cannot get to some of those places, if we need to go back to area education office or stuffs like that, having the HF or the VHF radio of old back, and then it's walkie-talkie, is some programmed frequency, and then it can be monitored to know if anybody is jamming it or if anybody is interfering, and then you can at least deal with that at that level. But the wave guides are there, the double side bands, several other protections are available to ensure that these things are there. So we need to address communication. In the instance of any emergency, how do you trigger an alarm? Who do you trigger the alarm to? It shouldn't just be a demo in the office of the IG and some friends of powers. No, it should be that these practical things should be deployed and be deployed as quickly as possible. We don't need the noise, we don't need the campaign, but we need the gadgets, we need the infrastructure, we need the facilities, we need the processes and procedures taken to the people that require it, not the television, not the social media.
Now, coming down to the issue of communication and also how information, now not communication in terms of seeing something and saying something, but communication in terms of intelligence report. When the attacks in Kebbi, the abduction in Kebbi happened, we saw the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waidi Shuaibu, visiting troops at the front line in Kebbi, and he had tasked them to ensure that they, arrest the abductors and bring back the girls safely. It was captured on video, it was disseminated on social media, and a lot of people were skeptical as to why this video was surfacing at such a very critical time. And when these troops were on their way to, carry out the orders of the army chief, they were ambushed and attacked again. So that is on one hand. And just this morning, we're hearing that the army is beefing up and trying to recruit about 24,000 new soldiers to join the fight against insurgency and banditry and general insecurity in the country. How do you react to these two different stories at the same time?
Well, number one, when you come, like I keep saying, I am not interested in the talking. And they should learn to do less of the talking. It's better that people don't know what you are doing than your enemies knowing all your actions. Yeah. The practical reality is that some is not even out of deliberateness. I've seen somebody, right, or I've heard the story of somebody who on a Sunday morning went into church to give testimony that armed robber came to the house on Saturday night, but thankfully enough, they didn't take the money. And then he got back home after service. Yeah. The armed robbers came and said, we heard the testimony in the church.
Interesting.
So since the money is still in the house, you have not gone to the bank.
Give us our share.
Bring it out. So sometimes we need to be careful what we say, where we say it, and how we say it. It's not common, it's not uncommon to see on WhatsApp a message between two hierarchy of the military, of the defense, of the society. Those kind of a letter, it shouldn't be flying around anywhere. And I keep telling people that those who are responsible for such, even if it's as harmless as a church information, if it is between the GO and the DGO and you send it to where members can read it, I think that you should be sanctioned. So because there are no sanctions, people just do what they like. I don't think that the chief of army staff should be somewhere making an announcement and then you are in the same place recording and sharing on social media without official permission. But some people just want to say, okay, we belong. Yeah. We are there. We were in the meeting. We were in the environment.
We're part of what is happening.
It's not about it. I don't want to hear what is happening. I want to see what has happened. So you need to do a rescue. Yeah, you need to do a rescue operation. Go and do it. When you are done, come back and tell us this is what you have done.
So the problem here is too much talk, very little action.
Too much talk, and then that makes the people who should be at the receiving end of the action to get more prepared, and so the impact of the action becomes less.
The ambush on the troops.
They are being able to run away, they are being able to get a decoy, they are being able to change direction, and sometimes even being able to send the military on a wild goose chase because there are too much talk. As to engaging new men, yes, it should be a continuous exercise. Yeah. It took us years to bring down the armed forces. I remember that from about 1990 or thereabout, Babangida did what he called the quarterly demobilization. And so every quarter, people were sent packing from the military. Now, training is not an overnight thing. We shouldn't, now you cannot employ people for skill, especially in jobs like military and jobs that require technical and tactical training. So what you then need to do is, because if you bring them in, they can be out in less than 90 days.
Absolutely not.
In fact, in 90 days for me, they will likely be half-baked soldiers. So you are possibly looking at 180 to 200 days for you to really say that you have bring these people up and they are now soldiers. Yeah. And then you come to the question of how are they recruited? Are we recruiting people who just want where they can earn salary and pension, or are we recruiting people who want to fight for the nation? Are we recruiting people who just want the prestige of the uniform, or are we recruiting people who are committed to the cause of keeping the nation at peace. Those things are things we need to answer, and they are not things that can be done in a rush. Some people might need to be subjected to some measure of psychometric test, and a number of other things needed to be done. Profiling will need to be done. So it shouldn't just be because the senators have brought the list, or the House of Rep, or the governor, or somebody who is influential has brought the list. As long as we do that, even when you recruit and you train, the chances are that people who are not prepared for the job, who wanted the salary, who wanted the bread and butter, they would always find a means to get the bread and butter. And if you number them as part of the active force that you have, the case will be sorry, because they will never be effective.
Well, here it says that President Tinubu has decided to postpone his trips, his international trips, meetings at the G20, the AU summit, the EU meeting. All of this have been postponed because of the current situation in the country. Now, I know this might sound like a rhetorical question, but should Nigerians applaud the president for this?
Well, I don't think anybody should applaud anybody for taking the right action. We should only see he has postponed the trip or is no longer going on the trip. What will be the impact, right? We want to see the impact and the result of his staying back over the next 24 hours, 1 day, 2 days.
Yeah.
Have we found the children? Have we found those kidnapped in Kwara? Have we done a few rejigging? We know that troops have to move here and there. Money also have to move. A number of things have to be done. So for me, that there is an emergency in the land, that there are people who have died, there are people who have kidnapped, there are people who are crying, I think that suspending the trip, for me, it's a normal thing. If he has gone, it should have called for condemnation, but not going. For me, it's not an issue of commendation. He has only done his job as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Because right now, you said the army is on red alert.
Yes.
You are the commander-in-chief. Then you shouldn't be going to where you cannot be reached. You should be where you can see and talk to the situation on ground.
In the last 72 hours or so, we have seen quite a number of, attacks in the country. In Kebbi State, abduction of 25 schoolgirls and the killing of a vice principal. In Kwara State, we saw an attack in a church and another abduction.
Yeah.
We are getting reports this morning of an abduction from the church attack, the CSC church attack. About 30 persons were abducted. The killing of the Brigadier General Oba in Borno. And, a lot of things have been happening. Why this sudden surge in terrorist and bandit activities?
Well, when obviously we are approaching the full-blown politics. I think just last week or thereabout, INEC had released the 2027 election cycle calendar, right?
Yeah.
Now, you expect that political activities will pick up.
Yes.
But what the trend has also been from 2015 or 20 thereabout is that you will see some insecurity issues, some internal matters coming up, distracting the process at such a time like this. So you keep you busy, everybody is focused on security, and while we are running around with that, of course some people can do their underhand and their underplay. The environment becomes less free, people become less confident to move around again, and so some people who are cut off can only know what they have been told. But obviously it also shows that in the last 10 years we have not done enough. I would continue to insist on that, and I will continue to say until I am proven otherwise that we have too many ungoverned spaces. And if we think that the forest guard system will help, then we should focus on recruiting the men who will secure the forest. Now, when you have the forest secured and covered, what we get instantly is that the movement within those environments becomes less. The spaces for bandits to hibernate become less. Yes, and on the street, the police, the DSS, and the other security forces can then do their further job to ensure that the cleanup or the mopping up is done. It is not, like I would always say, on the street of London or on the street of Cairo. It is not that some people does not want to misbehave. But the fact that you are sure there is the camera capturing you, and that when you steal or you do anything within minutes, you are going to be found out, then you are curtailed. You can't stand shouting at yourself, doing a shouting match on the street of Cairo. The police would have outnumbered the two of you in 1 minute. So even before you land the first punch, you are already, the situation is already taken care of. So presence sometimes looks intimidating, but it can be a deterrent. So if we take charge of the forest, and then those on the street can then take charge of the street, yes, we are not saying that will totally eliminate people with criminal tendency or with ulterior motives, but it would have reduced the possibility of their action, because one, they know that on the street they can be caught. Yes. And if they run into the bush, there is no hiding place, because there are some people who are already taking possession of the bush. And then you are going to have a comprehensive intelligence report.
Now, Mr. Ben, still staying with this matter, the federal government, via the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has blamed the United States of fueling this negative narrative of, or in their words, false narrative of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. Now, the FG says that the U.S. Is fueling the boost in morale of these non-state actors. Now, this is also as Nigerians continue to get angry over the spread of kidnappings and killings in the country. Should we really be pointing fingers outwardly rather than pointing it towards ourselves?
You see, like I said, I'm less interested in the statements. I'm interested in the action. The truth is that the government has said this, and this are what we can do. They should focus on doing what they can do.
But from your analysis, Mr. Ben, do you think that the statements made by the U.S., the actions taken, the enlisting of Nigeria on a blacklist as a CPC country is, or all of these are the reason why we are seeing a heightened state of insecurity in Nigeria?
We are seeing a heightened state for several reasons. Now, yes, such statements can make them feel bold. Bold in the sense that now at least we are recognized internationally that we are present here. And so you want to do things, you know, it's rascality. When you are a rascal, even when you know you will be thoroughly beaten, you still want, at least I know some rascals in secondary school. They still want to flex muscle with the senior. Each time they get a bloody nose. But wait for another week. The same student during labor will still come back and misbehave, and will still be forced by what they call general punishment. It's about 7 prefects flogging the same student. I went to a boys only school. And in those days, you don't report such to any teacher. It does happen. But you see the same set of students repeating the same action because they just want to be what? Recognized. As in,
deviants.
That we are outlaws. So if a state like the US buys into that narrative, it gives them some measure of now the whole world has recognized us. That is that. But I really don't think that the federal government should focus on that. The federal government should focus, like I said, on taking care of the ungoverned spaces. By the time we do that, you would have defeated terrorism to a large extent. Because what will now be left will be those who live among the people. But it's not like they have a place to run to go and hide, to go and plan. And that's the practical
Now, yes,
reality.
yesterday I had a guest here, in the studio, who was actually on Tuesday, rather, who was speaking about the U.S.-Nigeria situation. And he said, to my surprise, that the United States is pushing a narrative in Nigeria and that there is an agenda by the U.S., which he refused to disclose. He couldn't divulge what that particular agenda was, but that it had some political connotation to it, and that the U.S. was pushing that agenda in the country, and that we should be blaming the U.S. for whatever is happening in Nigeria at the moment, and not our government or security forces or anybody internally. Is this correct?
Well, for me, like I said, the U.S. is free to have their agenda.
Yeah.
It's a free world. And they are free to push it. But the responsibility of the government on this side is to take charge and take care of those things
Yes.
that they can take care of. For instance, the school kidnap. There has been the Safe School Program, not Safe School Initiative. Now we're talking about Safe School Program, which was supposed to be a 2023 to 2026 agenda. Now, with the National Assembly, where are we on this plan? Right? The police possibly have what they call a response center. The civil defense have what they call the National Response Center. They all are supposed to have units across all the states. I know that for the police, I was involved in a program where maybe the assistant commissioner of police operations were trained across board, where maybe about 108 senators, DPOs, that's from all the senatorial districts, the 109 of them were gathered there in Abuja to be trained. And then it was supposed to be followed up. I knew there has been follow-up in Kaduna, in Niger. I wouldn't have known the extent of what was done in Lagos because I wasn't there. But I knew in Kaduna and Niger, you possibly had the farmers, the hunters, the students, the vigilante, the police, the DSS, everybody coming together to look more at like, okay, what is the scenario? And you see the student telling us practically what they think can be done to make them feel safe in their school. And then you see some strategies and ideas that were coming up from the school that would actually make the Kankara case impossible in the future, where you can just come and gather all the students. No, there are things, of course, we can't be saying that also on air, but there are things some schools have done in Kaduna, in Niger, that they have put in their program that will make such situation impossible. But like I said, when you come to communication, in some of those schools, especially those who are on the outskirts of the town, they don't have any form of communication facilities. You need to go 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers from the school to be able to do anything. And that's why I said we need to go back, maybe in the Safe School Program. Of course, if the police, the civil defense, and the rest security system are organized. Because most times we are concerned about what money we have thrown at it. No, money will not solve the problem.
What will?
You need to have the people. There must be process. There must be policies and technology that you want to do. That's what money is going to fund. But when the budget comes ahead of the people and the process,
it becomes money-centered.
You see that everybody focus on what to do with the money. And then the money is wasted. Now, in the 70s, we had the president who said Nigerian problem was not money, but how to spend it. It tells you that as a nation, therefore, we must focus on, let's have the plan drawn, even before the money arrives. And the pastor once said, your first prayer should not be, God, give me money. It should be, God, put something in my head before you put something in my hand. That because if it comes to the hand before it is in the hand will control the head, and the result will be a disaster because it was not designed to be so. And so a lot of bogus things would have been done with the money, and you just realize that the money had been spent, but not much mileage had been covered. So we need to look critically at what do we do internally to solve our problems. And there are a lot of things that we can do, and we should focus on doing them rather than replying
the United States.
So if we do our jobs, when they come or when they choose to come, they will discover that we are not where they thought we are.
Now, Mr. Ben, a lot of Nigerians believe that the country itself is sitting on a ticking time bomb with the security situation, the continued killings and banditry and whatnot. And this outreach that is spreading, some analysts say, could get to a point where Nigerians would damn the consequences, pick up arms and take laws into their hands, and we will become a state in anarchy. Are we tilting towards that point? And at what point will Nigerians get to before they break? Because once that happens, then everybody is out of control and the situation becomes more chaotic.
Can we go out of control? Personally, I would say no.
Why? Why do you think Nigerians can't go out of control?
People that love enjoyment, we love life. A lot of people can talk. See, that's why I said even in recruitment, recruit people who are ready to fight in the army. Recruit people who are ready to go and get information and keep the state safe into the DSS. Yeah. Not individuals who are interested in money and pension.
Interesting.
So a lot of us are more interested in chopping life. And because our interest is in chopping life, what you get clearly is that we won't get to that point. Now, when I was in the university, I think it was, which mobile police command did I go to? Then I was maybe clerk of the house. We do all manners of CDHR, yes. And the actions were there. Babangida must go on one part, some other issues on the other part. And then we got talking. I don't drink and he doesn't drink. A majority of his other colleagues were busy boozing out. And he was like, look, that in his experience, he's been to most part of the country. They were talking about revolution. Yeah. The two of us were talking on our own. And I said, well, from all the books I have seen, there are two things that will drive revolution. Yeah. Acute social unrest and civil disobedience, and then acute stomach unrest. But at the way we are, Nigeria is too blessed to be really, really hungry. You may not get what you so desire,
but you will get something.
There will always be something available for you to eat. Yeah. So if you are sure of your next meal, if you are hopeful of something, you don't want
to lose
it. Die. And so because so many people are not ready to die, those other things people are saying are just theory. Now, is it the man who doesn't have money to eat that will have money to go and buy a gun? To do what? In the first place, where would he get the gun? Is he on the open store? It is not.
There is a level of sophistication to it.
Yeah. So it's not everybody that can get the arms and the ammunition the way we talk about it. It's also not everybody that can use it on that level. And most Nigerians, even when you find them sleeping under the bridge, have one measure of hope or the other. Now, somebody who has hope cannot, commit suicide or take risk that will end his life. So, and when you go around us, Nigerians are very hopeful people. We are today, some people already have some hope they have calculated for 2027. Some has calculated for 2026. Yeah. And so they are doing whatever they can to protect that target from coming to pass. And then you think the same man will now join you to scatter the office where he is expecting a letter in January. He won't.
Absolutely.
So we are a complex people. We are multi-religious. We are multi-ethnic. We are multi-racial, if we will say that. So to a large extent, what galvanizes and drives smaller nation and mono-ethnic environment will not drive us as a people.
Well, quite very important points you have laid out there, Mr. Ben. We will take a break at this moment. When we come back, we will still have Mr. Ben in the studio to speak to us on the security concern with the most recent visit of Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima to Kebbi State. to see the families of the victims of the Kebbi schoolgirls abduction, as well as to also see the state government and share the goodwill of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with the state. Do well to stay with us. You're welcome back to Morning Express. Now let's delve right into the discussion. We still have in the studio Mr. Ben Agunloye, a public affairs analyst, speaking to us on developing national security issues. Yesterday, Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima visited Kebbi State to commiserate with the people of Kebbi over the abduction of 25 schoolgirls in a secondary school, and also over the killing of a vice principal of the school. The Vice President met with the Governor of Kebbi State alongside other high-ranking members of society, and also met with the victims' families. And the Vice President specifically mentioned that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu shares the anguish of the entire people of Kebbi State and indeed the victims. Well, let's quickly get Mr. Ben's reaction to this. The VP was in Kebbi State, and some of the things he mentioned was that even in this very difficult time, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu feels the pains of the people. What is your own assertion of the entire visit?
Well, the visit is good, we will say, at least more like solidarity, more like showing the people of the state, the entire nation is with you in times like this. But like I would always insist, why all that is good, it is that we should be seeing actions to make school kidnap impossible. You see, the whole world read with, and they look at, are we actually humans? When you kidnap school children in their 20s, in hundreds, in 200s. Mass kidnap of school children is not something that happens. You can talk about hostage elsewhere in the world. But in Nigeria, we're always talking about mass kidnap. Somebody invade a school. If the first had happened in 2014, down the line,
11 years
we've
down
come 11 years. By now, we should have been able to ensure that this does not happen again. Now, like I was saying in the Safe School program, the plan was always very, very clear. The plan included, what do you do with the school community, the students, the teachers, the school security? What do you do with the community, with the host community where the school is housed? What do you do with the security apparatus, the police, the civil defense, the vigilante, the hunters, and everybody in that environment? They were supposed to be the place of building resilience. They were supposed to be the place of building the response system and a number of other things. But I have not seen this program executed full-blown anywhere in the nation. But I know that, yes, states like Kaduna and Niger started with the police and started very well. I've seen the NSCDC do this in Abuja, but I've not really seen what action they have done beyond what is in Abuja. The coordinating effort at the state level, according to that program, I have not seen it. Because at the state level, at the local government level, there were supposed to be some form of engagement. There were supposed to be some form of resilience building. There was supposed to be some form of capacity building for heads of security in the schools and the principals and the rest of that. Now, those things seems to have been jettisoned or not done at all. They were in the program. They were part of the plan. So whichever way, the National Assembly will need to bring the agencies to stand, rather than, it shouldn't be a question of 145 billion. I don't care what was budgeted. What has been done? What is the gap? It's not just sufficient to sit in the oval chamber and speak English and grandstand. It is that you should be able to say in your constituency, this is the extent of the Safe School Development Program.
Now we will come back to the Safe School Development Program in just a moment. Yesterday, when the Vice President arrived Kebbi State, We saw the normal welcoming party, the state governor, another state governor who was with him from I can't quite remember the exact
neighboring
the
states.
a neighboring state.
Zamfara is close, Sokoto is close.
Exactly, and then other government officials
Niger is close,
welcoming the vice president, and people were criticizing that show, on social media, saying that this is a very solemn visit that does not require the normal pomp and pageantry of government officials lining up to welcome either the vice president or the president. It should have been get down, as he's coming down from the plane, get straight into his vehicle, straight to action, where he is supposed to be, commiserate with the families, tell them what the federal government's plan is, and not to be shaking hands at the airport just after alighting from his airplane. What's your assessment of that visit?
Shaking hands will not be a crime. Courtesy demands that people have come to welcome you, you shake hands. But if there are dance and display and all that, I think they may not be necessary. A military salute would also not be out of place if it was present. Yeah. But bringing traditional dance and flower bouquet and all that, it's not a state visit. And I think that those will be excessive. But if it is that people have come, it doesn't matter. Even if it's shake hands with them one by one and get into your car and go, I don't think it's a crime. That they have come is also not a crime.
Yeah.
But what would be a crime is a state banquet and maybe such other related funfair.
Yeah.
Because it's not funfair. It came for a visit. And like I said, it should be less of the talking. It should be more of the action. And so he's gone, he's back. What has he discussed with the people on ground, and what are the results that we will see in the days to come? What are the results that we'll see in the days to come? But for me, it should be more of the action plan, which is not for public consumption. We're talking about security here. We're not talking about safety. Safety, everybody needs to know of what safety plan is in place. Climb the rail, use the pedestrian bridge. If it were talks like that, it can be in the public space. But when it goes to security strategy and security actions, I think that it is not something for the social media, nor is it even something for the TV.
Mr. Ben, let's assess the situation in Kebbi State in comparison to what had happened in Plateau State. A couple of months ago, when there were some killings in Plateau State, and the president had visited Benue and Plateau. One of the comments that the president had made to the Plateau State governor is that he should ensure that he should arrest the situation in his state swiftly. If you remember, it was also during the period where the River State Governor, Sasiminala Ifubara, was suspended for 6 months, and then there were talks about whether the governor would also suspend the Plateau State Governor for failing to handle the security situation, and there were also debates on whether or not, as the chief security officer of the state, the governor had full control of the army and the police. All of these things were put into consideration. However, with the Kebbi State government and the Kebbi State governor, we are not seeing such comments coming from the presidency chiding him to arrest the situation in the state before it goes out of hand. And people have sort of attributed this to party affiliation. Plateau being a PDP man, Kebbi State governor being an APC man. What is your thought on this?
I don't think this has anything to do with party. The crisis in Plateau, it's more of reprisal attacks and something like that. Yeah. That seems to be between some well-established groups. The issue in Kebbi has just been that of a school kidnap, which is more of an economic tied banditry. Somebody has come in to pick the children, hoping that he can negotiate with them to get some money. So that might not be an intertribal thing. It's not an issue of what's the name of the people of Kebbi now? It's not one tribe versus the other. There is no element in it to show that there was tribal hatred or religious hatred, or it's not a recurring decimal. I think it's the first time we are having school kidnapping in Kebbi, perhaps in recent years. So to a large extent, you cannot position it side by side with the issue in Plateau. And the Plateau issue had been there for long. It's been there for long. It didn't start now. It started from the days of Joshua Darie.
Yeah.
If it has not even, if they didn't have anything before
that, just that it was not, public
Joshua
knowledge.
Darie forward, we have seen all manners.
Yeah.
We've seen people killed, and at the point where they are lined to be buried en masse, some other people came and still killed
the people
buried the
them.
senator who were lined up to bury the people that have been killed. So to a large extent, the issues in Plateau is different from what has happened in Kebbi.
State.
And it would be wrong to have treated the two in the same format.
Now, I want you to address the debate on whether or not governors should have full control of the police and military in their states, because this has caused more friction, over the years. Attacks happen, governors are questioned and they say, oh, I don't have control of the army or the police. I can't give them orders. Their orders come from the federal government, and I'm merely a ceremonial chief security officer of the state. The only thing I get are security reports.
I, to an extent, disagree with that position. Number one, if you want to control them, then you should be ready to fund them.
Okay.
How many states in Nigeria can fund the army and the police alone before you talk about all the other security apparatus? So if you cannot pay them, then you cannot have full control. And you have been given dotted line control, then use the dotted line control.
What are these dotted line controls?
Of course, there is the Security Council in the state, where all the commanders and the police commissioner and some other key elements of the security apparatus attend. And the governor, of course, sit over that. You could give them assignments, you could establish a good rapport with them, and when you think, okay, this thing will require a higher authority, you are the governor. I'm not sure that a governor will call the chief of army staff or the IG and he will not listen, or the JOC, as the case may be. Because you have said that, do this, and the guy said, I need an order from the headquarters. Then the governor can call the headquarters. Your man on ground can do this for us, but he needs your instruction. It's as simple as that. If at that point...
Well, isn't that chain of command a little too long?
It's not. It's between just two people. This man has said, do this for me. And he said, no, I need an instruction from X. And you have access to that X. And then you talk. Because the truth is this, the troops under him is not the one paying the salary. The salary is coming from somewhere.
Yes.
And that's why when they argue for state police, people like me will say, give it to them. But they should be prepared never to owe the police. Otherwise, the state police will be the end of the state.
I mean, we're already seeing that the way governors are handling the local government autonomy situation after the Supreme Court judgment had granted LGAs in Nigeria administrative and financial autonomy. It appears that that is just in the books and it's not being practiced as it should be. If the governors have not been able to handle local government autonomy very well and saliently, should we trust them with state policing?
No, that's exactly what we are saying, that the roadmap, how you are going to pay the police sustainably, how you are going to fund them as a state, must be clearly stated before you begin to declare that you now have a state police. Because where you cannot pay your policeman and you have given them gun, they become not a threat to only your state, they are also a threat to the neighbors. Because a lot of states in Nigeria does not have what we would call very clear boundaries. You cannot, sometimes you are in Ondo before you know it, you are in Edo before you know it, you are in Kogi.
And you have things called border communities that you can't even tell if they are in this state.
As a child, I'm sure I didn't know the boundary between Ondo and Edo. Because they drink the same water, they work on the same farm, they carry fire across. And in the dry season, the river is dry. I became much of an adult before I know that, okay, this is Akoko Edo local government and this is Akoko Northeast. Oh. So it tells you they are close. They have grown together. So if you now have issues, Edo State Police that they did not pay, Ondo North is not safe.
Yeah.
Even Ondo Central, at some point, may not be safe.
So what is the solution? You have clamored for forest guards over and over again. If the forest guards come into, the entire idea comes into play, yeah. Is this going to be a viable solution to our security situation? Mind you, the army, the entire military, the army, the air force is on top of this. Even maybe the navy, but in the southern part of the country, we will say that they are active there. The Nigerian police is also involved in these. The Civil Defense Corps, you name it. A lot of security outfits are involved in the fight against insurgency, terrorism, banditry in Nigeria. Is adding the forest guards going to have any different effect on this fight?
Definitely it will, because their job is defined. Police duty is general.
Yeah.
Civil defense have their job cut out and defined.
Yeah.
But they don't have the number to run the forest. Even though you say they should protect infrastructure, they do not have the number to run the forest. And that's why even the pipelines and the electricity things they protect are still not well protected because of number. Now, if you bring in the the forest guard system, they take charge of the forest. So the issue of ungoverned spaces in the various federal reserve forests, for instance, is ruled out. So you know that at least in that place, they know who is there, they know what happens there, and if there are issues before it escalates, they can announce. Now, it's like you live in the village. They will clear the surroundings of the house. There can be bushes not too far.
Yeah.
But at least for like 10 meters or 3 meters, it's very cleared. And at night, you try to put light in those places. So that if anything is coming out of the bush near the house, you can at least either scare them away with the light or get something done about them. And in some other cases, you have a fence around the house. Even though there are bushes in the surrounding, the fence, because at that point you're looking at animals and predators and stuff like that, not armed robbers.
Yeah.
Anyway, fence will not deter armed robbers. But of course, for armed robbers, you can decide to possibly have a barbed wire. You can have some other things. You can have a CCTV. You can have an alarm that you could trigger for the area and things like that. But basically, the forest is one of the biggest issues in our insurgency fight.
Yeah.
Because when these guys do anything, the first thing they do is to run into the forest. Like I said, by foot, you could go from Edo to Kogi to Ondo, and even at some point enter Ekiti, around Omuo, and nobody. You will just be crossing some roads at a few points.
So the boundary line is undefined.
The boundary lines are very minimal. Yeah. And then when you get, of course, also to Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, you also have such kind of big territories where the boundaries are not clearly
defined.
Defined. But if the forests are well guarded, then nobody will hide in the forest to keep some of the arms and ammunition that these bandits use. Even if you see them on the street, it's not like they carry it around. They are kept somewhere. And most likely those places will be in the forest, not on the street.
Exactly.
But if the forests are manned, then you have reduced our exposure to the bandits and the non-state actors by close to 60%. You have now confined them to the street, where the people, the DSS, the police, and all the other operatives and the vigilantes can help in, of course, saying, okay, we have seen this and we don't want this to happen. But until we get that stretch fully done, because like I said, army, yes, they will need to increase number, but it doesn't happen overnight.
Some training has to happen.
Recruitment will take some time, If we are to recruit properly, and then you are looking at 180 and above training, days and above training, if you actually want them to indeed become real soldiers, in my opinion. And so it has to go in that order. And like I said, when it comes to recruitment, people who need job and salary are not for security operations. They should go and look for job in the civil system. Let only those who are ready to die for the nation, those who are ready to safeguard the nation, those who are ready to take the maximum risk and be appropriately regimented, let them be the ones we are recruiting into the security forces and the military.
All right, Mr. Ben, thank you so much. This has been quite a very elaborate discussion here in the studio on this matters of national security concern. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
All right. That has been Mr. Ben Agunloye, who is a public affairs analyst, sharing his deep wealth of knowledge with us on security situation in the country, with the most recent attack in Kwara State, a CAC church in Kwara State, and an abduction of about 30 persons, and the abduction of 25 schoolgirls in Kebbi State, and the Vice President's visit to commiserate with victims, family of the victims, and also the people of Kebbi State. We'll take a break. When we come back, discussions on Morning Express will continue from a different perspective with our next guest. Stay tuned.